Yo, what's good with y'all boys? It's your favorite Snkrs Jordan, aka Vixen, back with yet another video, man. Today we're gonna be talking about one of my favorite bots right now, which is Essence. Essence right now is a Nike bot, mainly Nike sneakers. They just implemented Nike.com just a few weeks back, so that's very new, but so far I've only been using the Nike sneakers module. This bot is currently in beta, but let me tell you guys, this bot has been killing for me. I'm sure you guys have seen it in some of my live cops. It's where you see me having my task view open and all the tabs open. That's Essence running. I used to sneaker bot a long time ago when Ghost Snkrs was around. If you know anything about Ghost Snkrs, you know this was one of the best Nike bots around. Ghost Snkrs was created by the same people that made Phantom and Wraith, so you know they do pretty good. But unfortunately that project closed down. So when they closed down, I completely stopped sneaker botting for a while, but one of my friends over at the Chef's Table, which is my cook group, named Nikki, told me to pick up this bot called Essence. Originally Essence was supposed to be an investment. I bought it for around 30 bucks and I was gonna wait for it to skyrocket because I think it's gonna do really well. But instead of sitting on the bot and not using it, I decided to try it out. I'm so glad I tried out Essence because they have been eating for me. Like I said, I recently just got into sneaker botting again, but I'm gonna leave some of my checkouts from Essence on the screen right now. And I thought I would show you guys how Essence works, what it looks like, how to properly use Essence, and all the other stuff. So I don't want to take up too much time with this intro. Without further ado, let's get into it. As you can see, now we're in Essence. This is basically just the homepage for Essence. This is where you can view all your tasks and everything. So as you can see right here, we have this S. This is for Supreme. I also forgot to mention that they're going to be implementing a Supreme module pretty soon. But the N is for Nike, which is pretty much going to be toggled for right now. And then you have Google login, mass edit, you know, the basic stuff. And then your analytics. So as we move down, we see we have the Proxy Tab. This is just a regular proxy tab. You just paste all your proxies in and it shows you what proxies are going to be used whenever you create tasks. I'm personally using strictly ISPs. If you don't know what that is, it's basically data center proxies hosted from internet service provider. I use ISPs because they're fast and they don't waste any data. You can use Resi proxies, but in my experience, I haven't hit with Resi proxies, and also it drains a ton of data. I think in one drop I used about 1 gigabyte for 25 tasks, and that was a little too much for me, so I just completely switched over to ISPs. And then if we move on, we're in our profile tab. This is where you put all your information that you want to enter sneakers with. And then if we move on, we have our Nike accounts. So if you ever enter a sneakers draw, you know that you need a sneakers account first. So it applies for the same thing when you're sneaker botting. Each task needs a unique account when you're entering the draw. Personally, my accounts are handmade. I use numbers for my friends and family, but I also just bought sneakers accounts, and so far I haven't had success with it, but as you know, sneakers is strictly luck. Originally, when I first started using Essence, I only had about 25 accounts. Those were the ones that I personally made, and then I just recently bought 25 more that were ginned from some other sneaker provider. So that's pretty much it for the accounts. If we move on, we can see the calendar, and this is where you're gonna go to create tasks. So as you can see right here, we have all the shoes and we have the size ranges. But if we go to the top right and we refresh, then we're gonna see the updated list. And if you guys notice anything different, some of the sizes are now green. This just means that there's a good amount of stock in these sizes. And if you see it red, it's lower stock, and yellow, it's medium stock. So I use that pretty much every time when I'm taking into consideration on which sizes I enter for. Most of the time I only enter the green sizes because that has the most stock and most likely I'll be able to hit. Sometimes I do enter the other colors, but that's really rare. As you see right here, we have an open in stock X button. It's basically just opens up a browser, goes to stock X and enters the SKU, and then you can find the prices from there. So in order to create tasks on Essence, if we go down here to the Jordan 1, we're gonna check stock. Right now, you see that the stock is very low. Usually as time comes closer to the release, you'll actually see more stock loaded. So the day before, I'll go in here, I'll click check stock, and then it will update with all the colors, and I'll pick the green sizes or the sizes that I want. So if we go to create task, we come up with this prompt. And this is how we actually create tasks. We can either go in here and select an account one by one, or we can use the all accounts. So in this case, we're going to use all accounts. And also the same for profiles. We have all profiles, or you could select each one. And then with the proxies tab, it's the same concept. With proxies, I usually only run about 2 to 3 local tasks. If you run any more than that, you risk getting banned, and you pretty much don't want this to happen. So the best thing to do is run 2 or 3 local tasks, and then the rest you just want to set to random, and it'll select all those proxies from the proxy list. And then we come down here and we want to select our size. Let's say we wanted a size 8, we'll select that. And then this is load images. Loading images, basically it does exactly what it says, but if you want to save data, like if you're using Resis, you would usually turn this off, because the more images on the page, the more it will have to load. And then we go over here to mode. Personally, I use desktop standard because that's what we've been using for the longest time. And usually during drop time, my proxies actually don't work on any of the other ones. So I select desktop, but also most people have been having success with mobile, but my proxies just don't work that way. And then if we go over to the submit order time, I usually just keep this default because it's set to the right times. It is basically just saying that it will enter the draw at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and then 5 seconds after 10 o'clock. So if we were to go ahead and create our task, we would just click this green check mark. And as you see, no indication came up. That's kind of one thing I want them to change about this, because I never actually know when I create tasks, but it actually did create our task. So if we were to go over to the top left and click this button, we come up to our task that we just created, and you see we have all these from the Jordan 1. So when it comes to actually entering for the draw, I usually start my task about 15 to 10 minutes ahead of time, depending on how many tasks I have, just to make sure I give them the right amount of time to actually do everything it needs to do. Also, one thing I also had to mention is Essence is really CPU and memory intensive, obviously because they're opening a bunch of browsers, but you want to keep this in mind whenever you're going to start your task. You don't want to start all of them at once, because if your PC can't handle it, you're going to crash out of Essence. And if you're too close to the drop time, let's say you tried to do this 5 minutes before, you're most likely not going to be able to enter the draw. So you want to just try to start them maybe like 3 at a time, let them do the process, then start 3 more. So just give yourself enough time to do this. I usually run Essence on my local machine. For my processor, I have an i7-8700K, and for my memory, I have 32 gigabytes of RAM. So I have pretty much enough to handle this amount, but make sure that you can. And if you can't handle this amount, I'd recommend getting a server. You can get it from AWS, which is Amazon Web Servers, or you can get it from Google's web servers. Also, before we go ahead and start a task, we could see at the bottom left that there's this blue timer. If we actually click on this, we could schedule a task. So let's say you went to work and you left your computer running and you want to start your task a few minutes before the drop. We can go ahead and start the time right here. And now I actually start our task at 9:30 from our local machine. So make sure that your time is synced up on your machine so Essence actually knows when to start at the right time. Also, let me show you guys how the settings look before we start one of our tasks. So if we go over to the settings, we see that we have our license and then we have the delays. So for the delays, I just kept it default. I think I changed my start all delays. So this is basically saying it's gonna start 10 seconds in between. And then I have the webhook setup. If you don't know what a webhook is, it sends notifications to your Discord link. I'm actually show you guys right here. We're gonna click test, and then we see in our Discord server that we actually got 2 notifications, one for the got 'em and one for the entry not selected. And then we have the calendar proxy. I usually don't put a proxy in here because it's not necessary for me. Nike isn't banned on my IP, but if your IP was banned on Nike, you would throw a proxy in here and then you just click save, and then that is gonna make sure that you can actually see the calendar here. So now that we're done setting up Essence, I'll show you guys the settings, the tips, the tricks, everything. Let's go ahead and start a task up and see what Essence actually looks like when you're running it. So let's go ahead and start this task, and then a window is gonna pop up. And this window is where everything's gonna happen. It's gonna log in, and this is being completely controlled by the bot. You don't have to touch anything for the most part. At the end of the video, I'm gonna tell you guys one thing that you should look out for whenever you're running Essence, because it's a major issue and it could potentially stop you from entering the draws. And as you see, it enters our shipping address, and then it's gonna move on, and then it entered our payment information, and then it's gonna save it, and this is where Essence actually stops. So as you see, it stopped and it didn't submit the order. This is basically Essence pre-carding it. So usually whenever you enter a Nike draw from desktop, you have to manually input all your information in if it's not already in there, just like Essence just did. But in our case, it's gonna save all this information and be at the step by the time it turns the time that you set for it to submit. In our case, we set it to 10 Eastern Standard Time and 5 seconds after. So once it turns 10, it waits 5 seconds and then it actually submits the order. So for the most part, you're gonna get to this step and it's gonna submit the order, you're gonna be in the draw, everything's gonna be good. But in some cases, if you've seen in some of my last videos, you could see that Essence actually didn't submit the order. So in this case, you're gonna have to manually submit. I know this is very annoying, especially if you have like 50 tasks. There's no way you can manually go in and click submit on each one, but this is what you're gonna have to do. Also, whenever you're entering these draws, sometimes there's an issue when you submit and they come up with red text. When this red text comes up, there's pretty much nothing you can do. I pretty much just close the browser and just let the rest of the tasks do what they do and kind of just take an L on that account. Another thing that is actually on Nike side is whenever you're entering the draw and you click submit order, it'll actually come up and it will say third-party payment or something along the lines of that. Basically, it's still entering the draw, but it still comes up with that. So for example, once you enter the draw, it's going to come up with third-party payment. If you actually click the X and you scroll down, you'll see the pending button. As long as you see the pending button, then you're pretty much fine and you don't have to worry about it. A lot of people have this issue and they panic about it, but I want to let you guys know ahead of time that is perfectly fine. I've actually hit multiple pairs of shoes. Pretty much all the shoes that I've hit, it's been on the third-party payment. And I'm also using privacy card, just keep that in mind. Another thing that I actually noticed about Essence is the task status. Right here you see is waiting to submit. This is actually correct because we're waiting to submit the order right now, but sometimes when Essence actually submits the order and the third party thing pops up, or it'll come up with the you entered the draw, sometimes Essence won't actually log the status of what is going on. So for example, if you actually submit and you win, sometimes the status doesn't even come up that you got them, and sometimes it won't even tell you that it's not selected. So in this case, I usually don't even pay attention to the task status, but in this case I pretty much just check my privacy account to see if I have any charges, or I'll wait for an email or something along the lines of that. Most of the time, if you see a charge from Nike, you got them. Nike doesn't really cancel orders, so you're locked in. So that's pretty much it for the end of Essence. So far, I'm really loving this bot. I think the devs are doing an amazing job. They have an amazing team, from the support team to the dev team. I also want to shout out Nikki from the chef's table. I really appreciate you for actually making the bot call and forcing me to pick up this bot. I probably would have never got back into Nike botting if it wasn't for you, and I was able to touch some really great shoes. So that's pretty much it for the end of the video. I appreciate you guys for sticking around. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section and I'll try to answer them as quick as possible. But again, I appreciate you guys and I'll catch you in the next one.